Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
It's time for another edition of Thirsty Thursdays, Sense and Nonsense. It's Danny and Joe. We are sitting around a crackling fake fire in front of us, feeling homey and ready to get out of the wintertime, which is why Joe has selected a taste of summer type of drink. He'll describe that when he actually starts talking, which is forbidden here in the first segment, the opening segment. Of course, we will start her up with the fact check and move on to wherever Joe sends us, really, or usually he has the topics and I have the diversions, which aren't planned. So we'll see how that goes as we get set to roll after the Chiefs have a wild weekend, certainly. I'm looking at a bent popcorn can, which probably took the brunt of the foot of Joe Spiker, just as much as Patrick Mahomes took the brunt of a tackle at that point in time. I'm going to guess that's what occurred, but we'll find that out too. We'll find out a lot of things. Actually, we'll find out a lot of things, and we'll find out nothing. That's what sense and nonsense means, and that's what we're going to start with next. Coming up on Thirsty Thursdays, salute.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092. I'm here with David Schmidt from Private Capital. And David, tell us more about your outstanding firm.
Thanks, Danny. Here at Private Capital, we focus on return on asset. In today's world, it is survival of the fittest. We look at things from all angles and try to figure out what works best for you. The changes we will see this next year on assets will be monumental. The key to success is knowledge. Know where you want to go, and we'll be here along the way. To find out more, give us a call at 816-221-7775.
David Schmidt from Private Capital with the best service for you. It's time now to get some great assistance on healthcare with Chad Beisel from NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com. And Chad, even your business's name would indicate that you have a real aggressive way and an important way to go after some health insurance for your clients.
What I've found out in the industry is just a lot of people are really confused. They don't know what plans are good, what their plans offer, how they cover. And so I've just taken the approach of being really educated on what options are available to clients and showing them all the options that are available and making sure they understand them so they can pick and choose what options are good for them.
And one thing that's really important, of course, is access to doctors and hospitals.
Absolutely. That's become a big issue for a lot of people. Some of the plans out there are going to restrict those clients to where they can and cannot go. So if you live just outside the Kansas City metro, some of the counties outside, you may not be able to go to some of the hospitals up here in the Kansas City area. So making sure that you have a plan that's got doctors and hospitals and places you want to go is really, really important today.
Learn more by visiting NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com and let Chad help you.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Hey, Danny, we're back. How are you, buddy?
Doing all right. Did you like my fabulous introduction?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, that popcorn tin got the worst of it.
Did you have those shoes on? Or did you have
I
a heavier...
I think that was barefoot.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a Topsy. Is that a Topsy's can?
It is, and it's
sort of halfway crumpled down.
Well, when Icicles went down with that injury, I was a little upset.
I would imagine.
I think the rest of the city was as well. I wasn't upset with the play call. I was just upset that it had happened. So we can probably talk about that later. But first, we got a fact check, Danny. You ready?
Right. I am ready.
We talked about JFK last time, and you had talked about him being a war hero. And I had never seen the story of his war hero-dom, right?
Right.
Do you know the whole story?
Well, pretty much I know the story that has been told, and how, they made a movie out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was called PT 109. Cliff Robertson played John Kennedy. I think it came out, I don't know whether it came out before he died or not. I can't remember, but it was right around it was the early 60s. I don't think it came out before but it's possible it did because Hollywood liked him, but I don't remember exactly when the movie came out. So a fact check for next time. But anyway, it was a major motion picture, and it was very successful. And he apparently that was when he hurt his back originally.
Well, it's quite the tale. What I read said he had kind of been born with a bad back, but this made it worse. So his ship got hit by a larger Japanese ship. Okay.
Yep.
And it, basically sunk the ship. He swam 3 miles to a nearby island, dragging a guy who was wearing a life preserver. He put one of the straps in his teeth and swam this guy 3 miles to this island. I mean, that's remarkable, right?
Yeah.
And then they were marooned on this island, and he carved a message into a coconut.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that coconut.
Really?
At the JFK Museum in Boston, yeah.
Oh,
which
okay.
I've been to on many occasions, and where I go knowing that full well that I'm going to cry during the introductory film that you watch. More in the part about Robert Kennedy, who was one of my favorites, than about John Kennedy. But it's a wonderful museum. It's in a beautiful location. It's right on the ocean, and that coconut is there.
It's wild that somebody thought to save that coconut, right? Like somebody saved that thing and brought it back from Southeast Asia.
Maybe he saved it.
Maybe. Well, anyway.
Oh, somebody else. Yeah, the person who found the coconut.
Yeah, absolutely.
He
didn't just toss it in the trash.
I mean, they didn't know he was going to be the president of the United States.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if every coconut that had a message on it got saved, we'd be up to our elbows in coconuts.
We'd be coconuts.
So we'd be. Oh, that was terrible. So anyway, if you don't know the rest of the story, he gave this coconut to a native who then went and took that to a New Zealand base on the island, and they came back and rescued everybody. So quite the tale.
Right, and he got I think what do you get for that? It's a Purple Heart or what? Something like that.
No, Purple Heart's when you're wounded.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a
Medal of Honor. Maybe
it was a
something
Medal
like
of
that.
Honor. I don't know. He got some big. But there was always thought that maybe this tail was dressed up.
Yeah, a little bit.
His father had been Secretary of the Navy.
Yeah, it said that he wasn't even supposed to physically be able to get in the Navy. His back was so bad, but his dad pulled strings and got him in the reserve or something, and then he got active duty. Well, I don't know if they gave him an award, but they might have given him some...
They did give him... he did win some kind of medal for valor. I don't know exactly what it was, but... Yeah.
Well, was it... Perhaps did they make him a delicious reward of some melted Velveeta? Because we talked about Velveeta last time.
Probably wasn't invented then, I wouldn't think. Or
it was.
Was it?
Absolutely. It started in the early 1900s as a way for this cheese company to get rid of their like misformed Swiss cheese rolls, like the wheels of cheese or whatever.
Right.
And that's how they would unload them, by making it into a block. And then it was bought by another company that turned it into the Velveeta we now know and hate.
I was going to say, because if you were just using the cheese from a cheese wheel,
it wouldn't
have the kind of consistency that Velveeta has.
Yeah, so anyway, they changed it, and then they started calling it cheese spread in the 50s because Velveeta came out with sliced cheeses, with the little plastic that you peel off, that awful cheese. And so it was competing with itself, right? Well, the FDA then made them change the name from cheese spread to cheese product because there's not enough cheese in it.
Oh, I believe that. I'm trying to think of right. It's like when these juice companies or these companies who are producing a beverage, just like proudly tout that it has 10% fruit juice. In it.
Yeah.
Like that's a good thing.
Yeah. What's the rest?
What are these other products? None, maybe, perhaps.
So we're on the same page. Velveeta's just trash. I'm sorry.
I'm not going all the way to trash. I would. It's not. It's
not mayonnaise
it's
level. Not mayonnaise, but Miracle Whip level.
It's not Vegemite. We were going several episodes back.
It's not as gross as Vegemite.
No,
There's I'm not sure anything's as gross as Vegemite.
It has its place. To me, it probably. I don't know when the last time I ate an actual grilled cheese. No, it hasn't been that long. I've probably eaten.
No,
I've probably eaten a gourmet
grilled cheese.
Grilled cheese, in the last 10 years or so. But I would think that Velveeta would make a decent grilled cheese.
Get the Velveeta away from my grilled cheese, okay? No,
I'm not saying it's ideal.
Listen, there's one.
It would be fast.
There's one. Yeah, no kidding. There's one use for Velveeta, and that is cheese dip. Right, that's it.
Right,
that's the only use. And I'll have a chip or two. Maybe 5 or 10, depending on. If I've had a couple beers, it probably tastes a little better.
Well, it's just probably what the other ingredients are in there,
yes.
Whether they spice it up and make it
with the
palatable.
Rotel, and then I'll throw some onions. My brother-in-law makes a pretty good one with some fresh garlic and some sausage and stuff. But more than 5 or 6 bites, and it just tastes like soap.
That brings the thought to mind that when you make a dip, either it's got to be one or the other thing. It's got to be of a consistency where the chip will not break, or you need to provide chips that are more sturdy, because there's nothing less enjoyable than just sitting there and continually breaking off chips into the
when
dip.
You got a man down in the dip,
right. And kind of, when other people are looking at it, kind of, ruins the whole thing.
In the COVID world, you're sticking your finger in there, scooping out a chip. Nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody's got time for that. My brother-in-law, he thins out his cheese dip with some milk, so it's just about the perfect consistency. So,
you will vouch for this.
I'll vouch for it. Yeah, you got to throw a little milk in there. Hey, a friend of the podcast, Brian Rowe, texted me after he listened to the last episode, and he said, I cannot believe that you and Danny could not come up with Fatal Attraction and Glenn Close.
It's pretty bad, isn't it?
Well, I blame you. You're the cinephile. Like, I don't. Yeah, it's not my thing.
The thing is, Glenn Close, and at one point in time, but she doesn't make very many movies anymore. She's not as highly touted, and she's not as good an actress, but she's good. Her and Meryl Streep were kind of like what seemed almost to be like the same person.
Yeah, but bit. Not. That's a tough comparison, right? Because Streep isn't she supposed to be?
Well, she is a more substantial actress, but it's not like Glenn Close is some rummy, some chippy. I mean, she's good, but
maybe I'll have to do some fact checking on Glenn
he
Close.
Certainly has every right to be very critical of our lack of proclivity in that area.
You know what? I'd never heard of the show Midnight Special.
Oh,
I pretended like I had, but I did not. So I had to look it up. Boy, it's quite the show.
Oh, it was sort of. This was sort of must-see television at one point in time.
Yeah, they said it came on Friday nights after Carson.
Right.
Which is a big deal, right? That's pretty good. If you're going to have a lead-in,
yeah,
I'm not sure you can do much better than that. They said the other cool thing about it was they didn't lip-sync on the show. They actually sang live. And like all the other shows like this back then, it was always lip synced on TV.
Did they say that they sang live but still played the music track? I don't remember it seeming live. I remember it seeming like it sounded like the record. They
Really?
Yeah, maybe they played the track and the people sang or something. But I do have a midnight special story that shows the absolute incredible appeal of Olivia Newton-John to a generation of young men.
All right. Let's
On
hear
one
it.
of the episodes of the midnight special, she had just become pretty hot stuff. She had broken, made a couple of hit records, and everybody a lot of people liked that look then, sort of the Dorothy Hamill, Olivia, sweet, sweet, not kind of sexy, more fresh scrubbed look. People like that, whatever. Guys liked it. I liked it. Whatever. So anyway, she's going to be on the midnight special, and she's a big deal at this point. And it was an hour-long show, which started late, obviously. Johnny Carson went till 1 o'clock Eastern time then.
Yeah, and in the middle of the midnight special run, Carson went from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, they said. I didn't realize Carson was originally
it was a
90-minute show.
Yeah, it was a 90-minute
My goodness.
show, yeah. So anyway, which shows how different America was. And make sure we get back to Olivia Newton-John, because now people have to be up and at 'em early, etc. And Johnny Carson was must-see television for people. And in the Eastern time zone, his show started at 11:30.
Yeah.
The news was on at 11.
That's interesting.
It started at 11:30. So clearly people were really, truly 9-to-5ers then.
Yeah.
You could still get a decent night's sleep. Probably back in the day, people weren't, getting up and getting a workout in or anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Just get in the car by 8 o'clock, commute, and be in the office at 9. So maybe that wasn't such a different thing. But anyway, so Olivia Newton-John is touted at the outset of the show, and they don't put her on. They don't tell us that this is going to happen, but they don't put her on till last gasp.
Okay.
She is the last thing on the show. So on Monday, I'm just driving around, and I'm listening to, a big rock station or whatever. Not like she was a rocker, but, she was a popular music thing.
A pop station.
And so he's doing a record break between one thing and another, and he comes out and he goes, "All right, be honest, guys. How many of you stayed up all the way through Midnight Special to see Olivia Newton-John?" And, of course, and I'm sitting there nodding my head. And I'm sure there are a lot of guys nodding their head because they had
It was a sight to see, huh?
Well, I don't even remember what she was a sight to see in our eyes at
Yeah,
that point
that's
in time.
right. And that's all that matters.
Right.
It looked like it was on NBC as well, which
Yes.
I didn't, for some reason, I didn't think Carson
There was another
on
thing
NBC.
on, you can do this for the next time. It wasn't really a competing show because it was completely different. The Midnight Special was more of like American Bandstand-ish. It was because it was on late at night. It was a little bit more hip, but not a ton.
Okay.
And then there was another show that was actually syndicated, but would show on every weekend. It was called In Concert, and these would be sort of, maybe 2 guests for an hour.
Oh, really?
And they would do several songs, yeah. So then you got to see, some big acts on that. So you can look up In Concert in the 70s.
And then the, MTV came out and just, when that happened, it just murdered these shows, right? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, yes, I'm sure it did, but, it was just such a total phenomenon anyway, completely different. I mean, they weren't standing there singing. It was all these goofy videos and such. Oh, we used to sit around at one point in time. This is a tawdry tale. I lived in an apartment with my roommate, and there were 2 of us, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment. But at one point in time, it got up to 5 guys were in there, and it was bad. And anyway, we had this crappy little black and white TV, and I mean small, like probably. Not even a 14-inch, probably
12-inch.
12-inch.
We had a 12-inch
maybe
growing
smaller.
up. Yeah,
and it had a sliding channel bar.
Ooh,
for
fancy.
there was like 30. Cable had started, but there was there were only like 32 channels. But you slid this thing to move from channel to channel. Okay, and that box was full of cockroaches. all the time. But I still remember, 4 or 5 of us hunkering down on a couch looking at a tiny little TV watching MTV videos in black and white.
Hey, we watched a lot of videos growing up. As a matter of fact, I took a trip that we may talk about later over the weekend, last weekend, and they had MTV Classic at this lodge we were staying at, and we sat and watched music videos for maybe half an hour. It was interesting, and it's from all eras. I saw the Van Halen Jump video. Awful.
Yeah,
I mean, awful.
Slow motion leaping.
Oh, yeah, slow motion, like what is it called when they 2 feet in the air and they try to touch their toes? It is
right.
A pirouette or something. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Fact check. So, Deanie, I hear you talk on the radio from time to time, and I hear you in podcasts, and I heard you, I don't remember where it was, but you were throwing a lot of shade on our fine meteorologists in this country.
I did last Friday with Seren Petro. But I actually gave them some props, too.
Okay. You want to start with that?
Yeah, I think that they're unbelievably good now when it's a short length of time at telling you, hey, it's going to start raining at 3:25 where you are. Or it's gonna, if you're a golfer or whatever, it's gonna stop raining at 11:15. So that's fantastic. But this is what I said, and I said that this is going to be a good topic to Joe because he heard me say it, and he disagreed. Just anecdotally, it does not seem like they're any better at predicting the weather 3, 4, 5 days out than they were 30 years ago.
Yes.
That's what I said.
And this is what this falls under, Danny, is it falls under, the slow creep of technology that we don't notice how much better our lives are and how much easier things are, sometimes worse, but just how different things are because the technology starts and you just, your phone, one day your phone rings and it says maybe Danny Klingscale underneath the number. And that had never happened before, right? I mean, and so it just creeps up on us. So here's the deal. Michael Lewis, great author, right?
Yes.
Moneyball,
yes.
He wrote a great book called The Fifth Risk, okay? It's about...
The Fifth Risk?
Yes, The Fifth Risk. And it's a fantastic book. It came out in 2017, maybe. And there's a whole chapter on the National Weather Service. And it's actually NOAA, N-O-A-A,
right,
which is the National Oceanic and
Atmospheric
Administration. Yeah. And how they compile all this data and then private business takes it and sells it to you, right? And so they did all these studies and they found, okay, here it is from the study, sir. A 7-day forecast right now, today, is 80% accurate. A 5-day forecast is 90% accurate. Okay, to specifically go after what you said. Today in 2021, a 7-day forecast is more accurate than a 1-day forecast was in 1992. Isn't that bananas?
It is bananas. I wonder what they consider accurate.
I did read a little bit in that because I knew you were going to ask that friggin' question.
Because I think people's general frustration, their biggest frustration, is when it's 2 inches of snow instead of the predicted 8 inches of snow, yes, or vice versa.
Yeah, and there was different ratings for accuracy. There was moisture accuracy and temperature accuracy. Temperature, they're crazy out of sight accurate, right? Because that's easier, I guess. I don't know. With moisture, they said the number one problem is that people don't understand how hyperlocal moisture can be, right? So, you watch Gary Lezak on the news, and he says, there's a 60% chance that it rains tomorrow. Well, that doesn't mean there's a 60% chance that it's going to rain at your house.
Right.
It means there's a 60% chance that somewhere in this giant area it's going to rain. And so I think that's how they measure it. And in that way, I could see the frustration that people don't think that they're more accurate, right? Because I don't care if it's raining in Blue Springs.
Right.
Because I'm not going out there.
Right.
But just facts are facts, sir.
There you go.
Facts
that's why we have the fact check. Facts is facts.
So anyway, I got all kinds of topics for us, Danny.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm trying to remember. We didn't originally go into this with the fact check idea. It just grew out of the first
Yeah, the first episode, I was like, Danny,
he was calling
you
bullshit
are so
on
full
several
of shit.
And that's when the fact check
And
started.
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I find it happening in everyday life all the time now, where I wish I had a fact check with most of the people in my life. I wish that I got to circle back to conversations with a fact check. You know, I mean, just certain people in my life, coworkers, other parents, customers, that it's like, this is empirically untrue. What you're saying,
right? And I think I've talked about this on various podcasts. I do many of them now. That it would be nice if we maybe circled back to a time when people actually thought that there were facts.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Remember,
there are some facts.
Yeah, I remember Kellyanne Conway with the alternative facts in 2016. Oh, what halcyon days those were when we thought that was as bad as it was going to get.
Right. I don't think so. But anyway, and hey, people are guilty of hyperbole and worse on all across the board.
Across the political spectrum,
right.
No doubt about it. But sometimes it's weird. Sometimes the sky is blue.
Exactly. Sometimes it's raining outside. It's like that. I'm trying to. I hope I get this exactly right. In all, you said you had seen All the President's Men fairly recently.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the line in the movie where they're in the cab, and Woodward wants more evidence to the one particular thing in the story, and Bernstein is like, "No, if you go to bed at night and you wake up in the morning and there's snow on the ground, it snowed." Even though you didn't see it snow or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right.
There's snow on the ground, it snowed.
Right. And so he's saying, but Woodward was having none of it, and so they had to get another.
But wouldn't it just be, it's just so wild. I don't want to get too much into this, but it's just so wild to think about the things that used to make me get so worked up about politicians that we thought was so bad. The things I thought were so bad in 1998 just seem like
pablum. Right? I think just with time, it's an unfortunate thing for me. I used to be a very political animal. I used to really care. And now it's just, it's like nothing's going to get done here. Neither side can agree on anything. This has become a team sport.
Yeah, I think it's natural.
It's not a cooperative thing, so it's very frustrating for me.
I think it's natural as you get older. I've seen it. I'm like 70 years younger than you, but but as I've gotten older, I've noticed that I just care less. And I got one of the greatest lines that I ever heard from somebody about the president was my father-in-law said.
The president in general, or
the president in general,
right.
Just the president in general. When I was getting all worked up, I was 26 or something, and I'm all worked up about something the president did. And he looked at me and he said, "Joe, what has the president ever done that has affected your day-to-day life?" And I sat there, and at the time, I couldn't come up with anything.
Now, you didn't have a business then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit different now.
Right.
I have a lot of people that rely on me now, but back then, I was way more worked up back then than I am now, and it didn't matter. I wasn't in any sort of situation where regulation mattered to me or tax brackets mattered or anything like that. And I think a lot of people could learn something from that lesson that, hey, why don't you care a little bit more about your city council and your congressperson than the president? Because he doesn't really, you get so worked up about it, it doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah, for instance, there's some election coming up for... it's in Kansas, and this is not, I'm not trying to take sides on this, but the right to life people are trying to have the election, an important election about some right to life issue, kept in a very obscure time, like in August, because they know that they're going to get out the vote.
Yeah.
Now, and then it's easier for it's better politics for their side to have a low voter turnout because that's an issue that people are very rabid
Absolutely.
about.
People are very
and they're going to go.
about
They're going to go whether it's in August or it's part of the main election in November.
It could be on the moon.
Right. exactly. So, there's a lot of that. There's gerrymandering. There's a lot of things to get.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things
but
to
there's
get
a lot of
worked
things
up
that
about.
are more important that are on the grassroots level
Exactly.
than at the gigantic level. And I am of the feeling that because I don't know that the presidents over time have been able to use their bully pulpit as much, that the president is nearly as important as he once was.
Yeah, I think when we were in a more bicameral world, when it was Russia versus the United States, and
Right.
it was like that, I think it mattered more. I think the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was more of a, look at the, hey, he's got his finger on the button. What happens if something happens? We've all kind of been lulled into more of a interconnected world where we're not as worried about that anymore. But yet we're more fired up than we ever have been as a country about the president of the United States. Now, the current, or I guess not anymore, but
Right.
the old president, purposely brought that upon himself, whether you agree with him, his politics or not, and I'm not going to get into that, because there's certainly things I agree with and things I don't. He was a pot stirrer. He wanted
Right.
he wanted to fire it up,
Sure he
right?
did, yeah.
I mean, that's part of his deal. He's a carnival barker. It's fine. Whether you like him or you don't like him, you should be able to admit that that's what his thing was, right? So, so because of that, we care even more about the president now. And I'll tell you what, the thing I'm looking forward to the most with the new administration is I hope it gets boring again. I hope all my friends that used to say, oh, politics is boring, I don't know how you watch the news. Oh, please go back to that. Please go back to that.
A little more normalcy. We don't want it to be completely boring. That means people are disengaged, but we don't just need to have people figuratively throwing rocks at each other.
I'll take 4 years of disengagement. Let's just all step away and take a break, have a cocktail, relax. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, let's do that. As we take a break, it's time. I'm switching from the North Coast Scrimshaw to the ever-reliable Prost.
Yeah, but I haven't had that Prost. That's the IPA. Have you
Oh,
had
okay.
that?
Well, we'll check on that.
What about the Scrimshaw? I haven't had this.
Scrimshaw was good.
Yeah?
It was good. You seldom have foisted a substandard beverage on me. So.
Well, I'm going to go grab myself a Yingling.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. And we will talk more about beer and many other things, and no more probably about politics.
Oh, thank God.
Right after this.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
It's time to visit once again with Dr. Brad Woodle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. And Dr. Brad, your group has reached a significant milestone in receiving a prestigious award.
Danny, we've been honored for the 10th year in a row to receive the 5-Star Service Award from Integrity Doctors. And what this means is that all of our offices throughout Kansas City have made sure to give people excellent chiropractic and acupuncture care, be on time, and do a very complete and thorough job, and have great responses back from patients.
I know firsthand because I was just treated, for instance, today by you. You have a wide range of fantastic services.
Absolutely. Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies, rehab, anything that you need to keep you well in bones, muscles, joints, and nerves.
And I can't say how much it's benefited me in the time I've coming here. Upwards of 2 years, my back has improved 100%. And you can have that same kind of treatment too. For more information and your chance for a healthier way of life, visit asfca.com/Danny today.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. I just want to thank everybody for supporting local restaurants during this time of uncertainty. 23rd Street Brewery is now open until this pandemic is over. And right now, more than anything, local restaurants need your help and support. Come on out and see us. 23rd Street Brewery is open now from 11:30 till 9 o'clock for dine-in and carry-out. Whatever we can do to help you out, maybe with your catering needs, too. I appreciate all the support, and thank you for continuing to shop local.
Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the Pure Gold oil. And recently I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new smart laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from RecExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit RecExpert.com and learn more. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. The opening of a can to end segment 1 and to begin segment 2. That's Joe with his Yingling, imported personally from Arkansas. You can. Is it hard to get Yingling here, or you just can't get it here?
You can't get it here, although I read online they're going to start selling it here.
Well, there you go.
And then it won't be special anymore because it's just a yard beer. But
right, it's we've talked about this before. It's like I used to come back from college in Kansas with like 4 cases of Coors, and I was making double. I was, double the money. I was doubling my money.
I tell people that story all the time. It comes up with the Yingling. We went to Arkansas, did a little duck hunting. It was great. Took some of my top people. It was so much fun. I know you're not a big gun guy, Danny, but
I could get into the camaraderie of the whole thing.
It was very fun. Yeah, and duck hunting is fun because it's not like deer hunting where it's like sit there and shut up, freeze your ass off, and maybe you'll shoot one of these big rats out in this field, right?
Right.
Duck hunting is you're in a blind, you're all shooting the shit, having a good time, maybe a couple pops in the afternoon, and we stay in this lodge where they cook us these great meals and provide all the booze, and so it's a long drive.
Do you eat duck?
I do, yeah. Duck's great. Do you eat duck?
I haven't had duck too often, but I've always heard that it has to be really prepared very well or it's bad.
Yeah, you screw up, well, there's 2 parts of it. You can't screw up extracting the meat from the duck because there's this layer of fat that if you don't get that off of there, you might as well be eating tires.
Right.
And then also, if you don't cook it right, it can be very chewy.
Right.
So you got to know what you're doing.
That's what I've heard. So I haven't had much duck.
Fortunately, I'm a fantastic cook, Danny. So I have nothing to worry about.
I think that's. I think we may have brushed on this topic before. It's just like I really enjoy when I'm traveling. Usually in Europe, which I act like when I'm traveling in Europe. I've done it 3 times. But anyway, when we went to France in consecutive years, and I ordered, but I've gotten a good one in New York too. Is squid, and squid is best known by most people for calamari, which most people will say is chewy.
Yeah,
but these are like squid steaks, and if prepared well, it's just like butter. I mean, it's delicious.
You're from out east. Do you like crab cakes? Are you a crab cake guy?
I do like crab cakes, but it is another thing that is really, really varied in its quality. I mean, a truly fantastic crab cake is one of the best things that you ever can eat.
Okay, so
but then an ordinary crab cake is still all right. It's all right, but it's more like a upscale fish stick.
Exactly. We are on 100% on the same
but
page
if you
here.
get a good lump shark, blue,
so
what was that, blue
crab, yeah.
Blue crab, not really formed into a real tight unit.
Doesn't have a bunch of crackers and crap in it. Okay, so my wife and I had our 15-year wedding anniversary a couple days ago, so we went out for dinner down here in the village to this place Cafe Provence.
Oh,
It's French.
Nice place.
Oh, my goodness. How have I not? I've lived here for a decade. I've never eaten at this place.
This will lead to a very interesting story.
They've got a crab cake in there, Danny.
Really?
And I've had crab cakes all over the world. It's the best crab cake I've ever had. You got to go in there and try this and tell me what you think. It is. It's an appetizer. It is so good.
Yeah, because it can be, a crab cake can be, like I said, a delight, or it can be a disappointment. Like, somebody say, how's your crab cake? It's all right. It's a sandwich, Bob Davis, the former Kansas announcer, has a very funny deadpan line. He's a very funny man. He was part of the Kansas City Profiles last week. And actually tomorrow, for UKU fans, Scott Pollard will be the Kansas City Profile. But anyway, Bob, when we would be at a media gathering and it was time to eat, everybody sort of knew me as somewhat of a fussy eater. I'm not, but I don't eat like, it was always barbecue in Kansas City. So
fussy.
So I just like healthy food. Yeah. But anyway, so I would always go, and Bob's kind of he's a good old American eater,
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I would go to Bob and I would say, so how's food today? He'd go, and if it wasn't particularly good, he would say, well, I'm not as hungry as I was before.
I got the job done.
Right. So anyway, that was, and I think the crab cake can be like that.
Yeah.
It can be the most wonderful thing ever. And we actually, when we used to do the grilling segment, one time, this guy called a man named Mitch Benjamin, who worked for TaylorMade forever. I'm not sure what he's doing. I haven't seen him in a few years. We still correspond and everything, but he's a big-time barbecue guy, too. Really nice guy. But he came in, and he made crab cakes on the grill. On the grill. And it was astoundingly good.
Really?
Best crab cake I've ever had.
No.
And it was made with blue crab, and it was...
On a grill?
Yeah. It was really something.
I mean, normally with a crab cake, I don't want it to be so formed that it would stay together on a grill, because then it's got too much additive.
Yeah, it could still come out in somewhat patty form, but it wasn't like a cake. You know what I'm saying?
See, my mouth is watering just thinking about this crab cake I had on Monday.
Well, the thing
Danny, they're so good.
The thing that's funny is that you went to this restaurant called Cafe Provence, and I got to try to make this story fast because it's a rather complex story. When my wife and I took our driving trip in 2017, which was a replica of sorts of the one that's in my book, except she got to select the locations we went to.
Okay.
We ended up on a certain date in early June in Saratoga, Wyoming, a town of only a couple thousand people, which is about what we did most of the time, stayed in places like that. So we get into town, and we check into this old hotel that was built in the 1860s, and we sort of are settling in, putting our baggage down, and we look at each other and we go, oh, it's our 15th anniversary. We had forgotten.
Oh, really?
We had kind of we'd been on this great trip and whatever. So we separate and go to this little town, and we get presents for each other. My wife actually sort of went to the jewelry store first and then texted me, you might want to.
Here's a good idea.
So anyway, I go into the inn, and I got the earrings, basically, that she suggested. So, but this is a beautiful jewelry store. Absolutely gorgeous.
What's the town again?
Saratoga, Wyoming.
Saratoga.
It's in southern Wyoming.
Okay.
And so my wife gets me a couple of really fancy T-shirts made in California, and they cost like $75 a piece.
Ooh.
And the joke of it is that, she looked at me after I tried the one on, and she goes, oh, look, those are great. You have shoulders.
I was going to say, good T-shirt might be wasted on this physique over here, right, sir. You're more of a sweater guy.
Yeah, so anyway, they're wonderful T-shirts, and we've bought subsequently, long sleeve T-shirts and et cetera from this. Anyway, so when she was in this store, they said, if it's your anniversary, you should go to Cafe Provence.
Oh, in Saratoga.
In Saratoga. So we do go, and it's a 5-star restaurant.
No.
In the middle of Wyoming. So
really?
So yeah. So anyway, there's like 12 tables or something. They put a rose. They knew it was our,
Yeah.
My wife had mentioned it was our anniversary. We had a special treatment and whatever. So anyway, the next day we drive and we stop for lunch, and we're 75 miles outside of Saratoga, or no, not that far. We went through a mountain pass, so it was it was lunchtime, but it had taken us a long time. Yeah, beautiful mountain pass. Anyway, so we stop for lunch. It's a little place where you sit up on the deck, you order food, then there's a little intercom up there, and they say, Danny, come down and get your food.
Uh-huh.
So I go down and get the food. I come back up, and there's this 35-year-old bleach blonde dude hitting on my wife, basically. Turns out that in the summertime, he was the activities director at a dude ranch outside of Saratoga that was for corporate and rich people, and it had an airstrip, and you could land corporate jets there.
Wow!
And in fact, during that week, one company had bought out the whole dude ranch, and had like 25 of their biggest sellers there. And it was like spent $250,000 or something.
So this is like the City Slickers movie,
right? It's
come to life.
So that's why there's a super fancy restaurant there.
Oh, now I'm
That's
tracking.
why there's this great jewelry store. Because I asked the lady, I said,
Yeah.
how do you make this thing go? This is a beautiful store.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, we're slammed in the summer. Because I didn't know the story then. And she goes, we're slammed in the summer. I have to hire extra.
Come flying in.
Right.
They got to buy their wife something to bring home.
And they need a fancy place to eat.
Place to eat. Wow.
Yeah. So it
How
was
great for that little town. That's funny how one, like a little tourism business like that can just.
Oh, it was a lovely little town. Wyoming is a real juxtaposition of absolutely nothing. And no, I mean, you'll drive for hours and it's high plains. You're at 8,000 or 9,000 feet, but anyway, then these spectacular mountains. I mean, we have a video that we've kept, on both of our phones of us going through a mountain pass, and both of us just like screaming out loud at the top of our lungs, like, "All right, we give up. It's too beautiful."
Oh, it's just that
like
beautiful.
4,000 or 5,000 feet on each side of the road, up, straight up. Just absolutely gorgeous. We went through the Snowy Mountains, and then there was another mountain range just outside Saratoga. And
see, I've never been. I've always thought that would be
you'll drive.
fun.
But then you'll drive 4 hours, and it's like nothing. I mean, literally.
And the only way to get there is to drive, because it's not like there's some airport.
There's only 800,000 people in Wyoming, the whole state.
Crazy,
right?
And they still get two senators,
and it's a huge right. And it's a huge state. Well, it's like we said we're going. No, let's not do politics. This isn't even political. But you just made reference to the Electoral College. And, I mean, the presidency's been about split for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And the Republicans haven't won the popular vote in that whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, because you still have that.
You got Wyoming.
You got what they wanted.
And you got 2 Dakotas. You ought to have one. For some reason, we got to have 2 of them. I don't understand why we need two Dakotas. Like, give me a Puerto Rico. I'll trade you a Dakota for a Puerto Rico.
There's a fact check. Why are there 2 Dakotas? I don't know.
Oh, I imagine it's part of the Missouri Compromise, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Right?
What could one have been? A slave state?
No, not up there.
No, that's what I was saying.
But they probably needed to make another state to let another southern. I don't know. I'll look it up.
That sounds right.
You know what I mean?
That sounds
It's got to be something like that.
Yeah.
That's half the reason we have half the states we have. I mean, Delaware has 3 counties. I mean, come on.
This is unfair because now the president of the United States is from Delaware. I literally can say I have never met anybody from Delaware. It is the most anonymous state.
My dad grew up in Delaware, but yeah.
Don't you think?
The problem is I have a bunch of family out there, so it's different for me. I got a bunch of family in Delaware. I got a bunch of Delawareans.
Would you agree it is the most anonymous American state?
Oh, do you think?
I do.
What about Rhode Island?
Well, I'm from New England, so I could see if you're from somewhere else that Rhode Island would kind of pass under the radar. It is, and they do have something in common. They're both tiny.
Yeah, right. I mean, my daughter is learning her states and capitals, right? She was in the Northeast region, and I'm learning all these states. I mean, I'm pretty good at geography, but I'm like, oh my goodness, look at the size disparity here. Why are these all different states. Come on already. We got too many of these. Let's simplify this. This has been the most political show we've ever had.
That's why, I mean, New England is a very enjoyable place to go because it is small. I mean, we used to, we were from Framingham, a suburb of Boston. We used to go to the beach just for the day to Maine, and we had to go through New Hampshire to get there.
Got to go through a whole state. It takes me 12 hours to drive to Colorado.
Right, so you could, easily be in a couple of states, no time. You can drive from Boston into New York State in less than 4 hours, for instance, across the whole state.
Have you seen this Tiger Woods special on HBO?
I've not. I've heard a little bit about it, but I have not seen it. I don't have HBO.
Oh, maybe I need to give you my HBO password on that Roku I set up for you.
Well, I've been around Tiger Woods enough to know that I probably know what's in there.
Well, it is.
They asked him to be part of it, and he said no.
Did they?
Yeah.
Because people are comparing it to the Michael Jordan special, and I'm like, no, don't even come to me with that. Because Michael Jordan was in the Michael Jordan special. Right. That's what made that special. Is they got him, a couple of cocktails and a cigar,
exactly,
and they got him talking. I mean, whoever made that Michael Jordan special,
well, the other part
should be lauded for his ability to get Michael Jordan to talk. For real, right? And I mean, early on in our podcast, we talked a lot about because there was no sports.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Do we think that special would have resonated so grandly if it wasn't for the fact that there was nothing to watch?
Well, we talked about it at the time on that podcast that one of the reasons that we thought that it was resonating is because there was nothing to watch. I think the answer is no, it would not have, but I don't think...
You don't think it would have been just a souped-up 30 for 30?
Correct. I think my wife still would have been like, oh, this is great. We should watch this. We watched it with the kids. I mean, my kids are 8 and 10, and they were like wrapped. And they don't know anything about Michael Jordan.
But the thing that I found, that's the thing that I thought was elevated by the fact there was nothing going on. I was not wrapped. R-A-P-T. I knew, it wasn't. I didn't learn anything. I mean, there were little details that were funny stories and stuff like that, but there was no revelation in this thing.
No, I don't think that there were. For me, it was look. America loves nostalgia. Okay, and I will gladly admit to being a very nostalgic person. And when I watched that, I got very nostalgic for the 90s, right? And I mean, those were great times, and the basketball was not as good to watch as it is now, right? But it's the basketball that I grew up watching, right?
Well,
the bully ball.
It's just different.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, I mean, maybe you would say it's not.
And maybe we were talking about this on a podcast with Stan Weber. Maybe that maybe they need a little bit. I think the pendulum has swung a little too far.
I agree completely,
and I think it's really swung too far. I'm watching the national championship football game, and as soon as the graphic came up, I'm like, this has got to end. The dude for Alabama was completing 77% of his passes.
Well, I thought you were going to say Alabama needs to end.
77, well, you really can't, you just, get better. But 77.3% passing? I mean, come on. And it's not like Alabama was dinking and dunking.
I disagree with the flippant nature that you said about you have to fix parity in college football. Here's how you fix it. You want to know how? I've got this all figured out.
They could have far less scholarships.
I think.
But that would hurt women's sports.
You let them go. No, I don't agree. No, we don't need to do that. Let them go out of high school.
Let them go pro?
Yeah.
In football?
Yeah, and make them have a minor league.
Well, I just don't think that I think it's so different. The NBA, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I think they're more physically ready to play the sport. But I don't think...
Why does baseball have 4 divisions? And football has 1.
You mean 4 layers of...
Yeah, if you want to talk about it in layers, it's just like the Premier League, right? I mean, other than, I guess it's not, because those are different clubs.
It's like
and
the EFL in England, that you can go from,
Although it's different because you're bringing players up and down, so it's different. I'm just saying, how come, I don't know. It's a long discussion we should probably say for another time.
I would say, since
you know what I mean? I'm
just
saying, there's got to be something you can do, because it's gotten to be, it used to be one of 20 or 25 teams is going to win the national championship. Now it's like one of 12, you know?
Well, maybe one of 12.
Yeah, and that's just, look, as a fan of a juggernaut program like the University of Kansas, you know, I get a little bored with them just winning football games all the time.
I thought you were just talking about basketball.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, even though...
Well, 6 national championships in 12 years is it gets, especially when you're generally playing and beating or occasionally losing to the same squads.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a hater on Alabama. What they're doing is great.
No.
I'm just saying, is if it's not Alabama, it's one of like 11 other schools, and that's just not. I don't know. It's just not fun to watch anymore.
In my mind, the only real way to cure that is to lower to drop the scholarship limit. But indeed, that would hurt women's sports because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. That's why you have all these sports that people make fun of, like rowing or
rowing
whatever, because they have
offset.
they have to have the same amount of scholarships, and football has so many.
What if you did it like high school football and you play your conference games, so they play like 7 or 8 conference games, and then they go into a 64-team tournament? How great would that be?
I think it'd probably have to be a little smaller. The 64th best college football team is just going to get wiped out. It's different.
How do you know?
It's different. It's a different sport. In basketball, all right, I was adamant that the 16 seed was never going to beat a 1. Adamant. And I became more adamant as time went on, just because of who the 64th or who the team was that was going to play the number 1 seed, because that was going to be a play-in team, which was generally going to be a team from a bad conference that didn't even win the conference and might not even have a winning record.
Correct.
So I mean, the fact that actually happened was astonishing. But the physical mismatch between the 64th best team
Alabama
and
Bowling Green or something, the physical mismatch
probably be worse than Bowling Green.
Yeah.
So that maybe you could go. Certainly 16's wild, but maybe you could even go 24 and have 8 buys or something. I'd buy that maybe.
Yeah, and stretch it out over.
But 64, but it's such a physical sport. There's physical danger involved. Here, people are putting their bodies on.
Maybe it'd be different if KU was better, but like I don't need to go see KU basketball play Washburn.
Right? I totally agree.
Okay, I don't need to see
it's good for Washburn. It's good for Fort Hayes. They make some money.
Yes, and I don't need to see KU go get the brains kicked in by Toledo or whoever the hell they're playing. Not gone. You know what I mean? Like, let's just play some conference games and get on with it. Anyway.
Yep. A topic for another day, as you say. Are we ready to toast?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we've both got cans, so it's not going to work. I'll fake it. There we go. No, that's not even going to work. That was bad. That was a can and a bottle. We'll just say salute.
Salute.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klink Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new. This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com, specializing in expert healthcare guidance and assistance for you.